Frank had driven a city bus for 30 years. He knew his route, the 7:15 downtown loop, better than the lines on his own palms. He knew Mrs. Gable with her grocery cart every Tuesday, old Mr. Henderson heading to the library, the twins who boarded at Oak Street for school. He also knew, with a quiet dread, the man in the gray trench coat. For 3 months, every Friday at 7:22 a.m., the man boarded at the corner of Mercer and Fifth. He never spoke. He paid exact change. He sat in the same seat the third from the back, on the right. And he got off at the abandoned factory terminal, the last stop before the bus turned back. No one ever got on or off there. It was a dead place. Today was different. It was Friday. The man in the trench coat boarded at 7:22, but he didn't have his briefcase. And his hands were empty, shaking slightly as he dropped the coins in the fare box. His eyes, when they briefly met Frank's in the rearview mirror, were red-rimmed and desperate. Frank felt a cold knot form in his stomach. He drove on, the familiar stops passing in a blur. Mrs. Gable waved. The twins laughed. The world was normal, except for the silent man vibrating with terrible purpose in the third seat from the back. As they neared the final stretch toward the abandoned factory, Frank made a decision. He passed the usual turn. He kept driving straight, off route, toward the bustling main transit depot. A voice, sharp as shattered glass, cut through the bus's quiet. "Driver, you missed the stop." Frank's knuckles were white on the wheel. "Detour, route change. Stop the bus." The voice was low, lethal. Frank didn't stop. He accelerated, his heart pounding against his ribs. In the mirror, he saw the man stand, one hand moving inside his coat. The other passengers were staring now, sensing the wrongness in the air. Frank slammed on the brakes in the middle of the busy depot roundabout, throwing the doors open. "Everyone out. Now?" Passengers scrambled, confused but urgent. The man in the trench coat was trapped by the fleeing crowd. Frank stood, blocking the front exit, an old tire iron from under his seat suddenly in his hand. He'd never used it in 30 years. The two men faced each other in the empty bus. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called. "You don't understand," the man hissed, his hand still inside his coat. "I have to finish it there. It has to be there." Frank just shook his head, his voice steady. "This is the last stop, pal. Everybody off." The man sagged, the fight draining out of him. He pulled his empty hand from his coat. No weapon, just a photograph of a woman, worn at the edges. When the police came, they found the man weeping. In his pocket was a suicide note and the address of the factory where his daughter had disappeared a year ago. The bus was his weekly pilgrimage. Today was the anniversary. He wasn't going there to be alone. He was going there to die. Frank sat on the curb, the tire iron beside him. He'd spent 30 years following the route. Today, he'd broken it. He hadn't just driven a bus. He'd driven a man away from the edge, and in doing so, had taken his own last ride from being a driver to being a witness. A barrier, a final, unexpected stop on a lonely man's tragic route.